1. The wisdom of tranquility, navigating life's challenges with calm and insight. 1. From soul lessons to life philosophy. The 3 don'ts of the wise. Don't get angry to preserve good vibes. Don't worry to save energy. Don't argue to conserve strength. There's a passage that feels comforting. It goes like this. When I was younger and faced disappointment, I would comfort myself with some verses. Ask the clouds to carry my message. Present pain, however deep, wipe away my tears swiftly. For tomorrow holds dreams so grand. As I grew up, I learned to tell myself, I shouldn't feel sad about the current misfortunes. Who knows, tomorrow might bring even greater challenges. Thinking this, I wouldn't even dare to cry. Life is full of ups and downs, and everyone must cultivate their spirit to achieve a certain level of peace. So, what is the highest realm one can reach? Let's explore together. 1. Don't get uselessly angry. Learn to manage your emotions. In life, not all good things come easily or frequently. Thus, when things don't go your way, you need to control your emotions. Don't get angry or complain. You can feel sad, but just a little. Napoleon once said, "The one who can control his emotions is greater than a hero who conquers a city." Everyone goes through misfortunes and challenges in life. Either you get temporarily overwhelmed or you face them positively and overcome. Life isn't easy, with difficulties everywhere. As the poet Li Bai sighed, "The road is hard. The road is hard. Where now? So many paths." Only with focus and perseverance can one face life's hardships, accumulate positive energy, improve capabilities, and develop strengths, like the sturdy pine and cypress trees, which bend in the storm but do not break, and shed snow from their branches by their own strength. Grown-ups should know a type of wisdom called not getting angry. Life is ever-changing, and a truly wise person can stay calm in any situation, avoiding confusion and entanglement, and maintaining peace of mind to see through the fog and move forward. 2. Don't worry when faced with changes. Nothing in life is constant. When sudden changes occur, don't panic or hesitate. Every experience is a valuable asset. Learn to face and accept them calmly. As Buddha said, whoever you meet is the right person in your life. Whatever happens is inevitable. Every moment that comes to you is the right time. Great achievers stay calm and untroubled, proactively seeking solutions for problems. There's a saying, since ancient times the wise understand, the more tumultuous and dangerous the times, the calmer and fearless the heart must be. Only without chaos and surprise can we think clearly, make correct judgments, and overcome obstacles. When an unexpected event strikes, stay calm to find a solution, and you can overcome the difficulty and succeed despite adversity. 3. When falsely accused, don't engage in pointless arguments. Here's a wise, short story. In the past, Han Shan asked, "What should I do if someone slanders, cheats, mocks, or hates me?" Shi De replied, "Just yield, be patient with them, respect them, avoid them, and eventually don't worry about them. In a few years, you may meet them again." Zhuangzi said, "You cannot discuss the ocean with a frog in a well. You cannot discuss winter snow with summer insects." Wise people choose who they discuss truths with. One day, a well frog told a sea turtle, "Life in my well is great. When I want to go out, I climb to the well's edge. When I swim, the water is just right. This well is my world. Why don't you try it?" As the turtle tried to enter the well, it got stuck, showing the frog how limited its world was compared to the vast sea. Environment limits thinking, and complacency leads to narrow-mindedness. This is the essence of the proverb, "a frog in a well." Therefore, in the Autumn Waters chapter, Zhuangzi discussed, You can't discuss the ocean with a frog in a well. You can't discuss winter with summer insects. You can't discuss profound truths with those of limited vision. Instead of useless arguments, adjust your mind, stay calm, and let time reveal the truth and clear up misunderstandings. Sometimes explanations are unnecessary. Your enemies will not believe them, and your friends don't need them. In life, sometimes avoiding arguments and explanations is better. Carnegie said, "The only way to win an argument is to avoid it. Arguing with the uninformed only drains energy, and explaining inefficacies only adds to worries. Live strong, without arguments or explanations, and let time provide the answers you seek." 2. Finding balance in life. I hope we can all live happily every day, enjoy our meals, and sleep soundly. Losing something shouldn't make us angry. That's life. Gaining something shouldn't make us boastful. Just smile and move on. Stay calm, don't compete, and live a life of peace. As Zhuangzi said, things flourish and decline. There's no constant. Success doesn't make me happy, and loss doesn't bring me sorrow. I know the impermanence of things. In life, when we think we've gained something, it might be when we're losing something else. When we regret what we've lost, we might already have gained something new. To not be overly joyous when gaining, nor too sad when losing. That is true calmness, the moment you see through life. Wise people understand, lose without anger, gain without pride, remain calm without conflict, overcoming loss without anger or sadness. In Mencius, it is said, facing difficulties without despair and receiving no trust without frustration. Argentine basketball player Manu Ginobili, a key player for the national team with great strength and endurance, was merely a backup for the San Antonio Spurs until he retired. Being a backup meant losing opportunities to play, but he wasn't angry or disappointed. Instead, he chose to enjoy being part of the team. At his retirement, Ginobili said, "Winning isn't everything. I've learned more from my losses. No one is born knowing everything. Experience helps you grow." He was willing to be a backup, eventually achieving significant success in his career. Sometimes, when faced with difficulties or dissatisfaction, what decides our success is not capability but attitude. Anger and disappointment over lost opportunities and glory not only fail to win recognition but also lose performance and perspective. Beethoven didn't give up on himself or his dreams just because he couldn't hear. Life is full of disappointments, and it's not worth getting angry, depressed, or giving up on your ideals because of adversity. The author of Everything is Perfectly Arranged says, "People like gaining and dislike losing, but losing is not unbearable, nor a disaster. Often, losing is just letting go, making room for something better." Truly influential people see through gains and losses. They don't dwell on the past, aren't angry at injustices, nor regret their failures. Gaining without pride. The Tao Te Ching states, "By not deeming himself great, he can achieve greatness." A person, only by not considering himself the best, not being proud, can truly achieve greatness and surpass others. Han Xin, recommended by Xiao He, a famous prime minister who helped Liu Bang build his empire during the Han Dynasty, to Liu Bang, was appointed general-in-chief. In his military career, Han Xin won every battle and was praised as the unparalleled patriot by Xiao He and regarded as unbeatable in battle by Liu Bang. Despite his lifelong victories, Han Xin ultimately fell due to his own arrogance. Liu Bang once discussed with Han Xin the capabilities of other talented generals. Asking about his own capabilities, Liu Bang said he could lead 100,000 troops. When asked how many he could lead, Han Xin replied, "The more, the better." On leadership, Han Xin dismissed Meng Tian, a general of the Qin dynasty who expanded the northern borders and supervised the construction of the Great Wall, as fools, and mocked other founding officials like Fan Kuai and Lu Quan, gradually losing credibility with his troops, and was eventually killed by Empress Lu. The essence of being a gentleman is not to be arrogant, not to boast about achievements, and to be wise in understanding the weight of actions. Truly influential people wisely conceal their advantages. Don't dwell on accomplishments. Don't brag about achievements. Don't be proud in glory. Calm without competition. Laozi said, "The highest good is like water, benefiting all without contention. Because it does not contend, it is beyond reproach." Not competing allows for carefree living without worries. Chua Lam, a food critic and occasional TV host based in Hong Kong, shared his experience. While on Kepayang Hill, a local roasted chicken for me all day. When I asked her if she had ever eaten fish, she didn't know what it was. After showing her a drawing of a fish and expressing pity that she hadn't tasted it, she simply said, "What's there to regret if I've never had it?" What you don't have, you might regret. What you ignore won't trouble you. Loss is just a relative concept because whether you can have something or not is not within your control. Chua Lam also met an old fisherman. Seeing that the fish caught by others were larger, he kindly suggested, "The fish are bigger on that side. You might want to fish there." The old man cheerfully replied, "I'm just fishing for lunch." The fish never eaten are not a loss. The small fish sufficient for a meal is enough. What never enters your life cannot be considered a loss. What you currently have is true happiness. Whether the girl on Kepayang Hill or the old fisherman, not competing is the most valuable way of living. Not competing over size or quantity may seem like missing out, but in reality, it brings peace and stability. A great saying goes, "All in the world is like a dream. Look far and see the blessing." Clinging to gains and losses is a modern affliction. In the end, it's our greed, always wanting more, never satisfied. Only by maintaining a sense of moderation, being content and not greedy, can life become lighter, simpler, and more peaceful. Being able to see and appreciate the loved ones around you is happiness. Cherishing them is fortune. Even if you know you can't have something, being undisturbed is true wisdom. You don't compete with others and they won't compete with you. Don't compare wealth. Don't crave fame or fortune. Don't measure gains and losses. Silently strive, quietly become more skilled, and what is meant for you will eventually be yours. I hope we can all live happily every day, enjoy our meals, and sleep soundly. Losing something shouldn't make us angry. That's life. Gaining something shouldn't make us boastful. Just smile and move on. Stay calm, don't compete, and live a life of peace.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
3. From anger to prosperity. I once read a story about an ancient time when a young man had very little land that was barren and infertile. Year-round, he couldn't gather much, and by nearly 30, he was still unmarried. Unwilling to remain single, he decided to leave the land to his parents and set out to make a living on his own, working from dawn till dusk. Eventually, he started a small business. Trading often led to oppression, and every time he came home upset, he would run 3 laps around his land to clear his mind. Over time, his land expanded and his wealth grew. He not only found a wife but also had several lovely children. Even when wealthy, whenever he got angry, he still ran 3 laps on his land, persisting despite sometimes being so tired he could hardly breathe. Curious, his father asked, "Son, why do you run like that when you're angry?" The young man smiled and said, When I was poor and oppressed outside, I had no way to vent, so I had to run 3 laps at home. After running, I'd think to myself, I have little land, a small house, and no wife. Why waste time being angry at others? And I would focus on how to make money. His father nodded in agreement, then asked, "Now that you're well off, why do you still run?" The young man replied, "Now, when I get angry, I run and think about how I have plenty of land, a large house, my father is healthy, my wife is kind, and my children are dutiful. Life is good, so why bother holding grudges against others?" There's a saying, a person who doesn't know how to be angry is foolish, but one who doesn't turn anger into motivation is truly unwise. Life is not always a path covered with roses. Each person must face their own set of challenges. In the stormy journey called life, failure is inevitable. To escape difficult circumstances and change your fate, you must learn to turn anger into a drive to achieve your goals. Many believe that anger is the most useless emotion. However, when you learn to channel your anger into motivation, you can become stronger, making your new life increasingly free and peaceful. 4. A diamond among stones. There was a middle-aged man who felt resentful because he had never been praised by his leaders. One day he visited his mentor and shared the grievances he had harbored for a long time. After listening, his mentor took him to the riverbank, picked up a stone, and threw it into a pile of stones nearby. Once done, the mentor turned to the man and asked, "Can you find the stone I just threw?" "I can't," the man replied. "What if it had been a diamond?" the mentor asked, looking meaningfully at the man. The man suddenly realized something, thanked his mentor, and left. If we are just a stone, no matter how beautiful, we are still just a stone and cannot make others see us differently. But if we are a diamond, then even if we keep to ourselves, others will not overlook our presence. Every talented individual will have their moment. The reason we might not be praised is that we are not yet outstanding. Holding grudges and blaming others solves nothing. If we are dissatisfied with what we have, then we should strive to change, as that is the only choice we truly have. 5. Overcoming the storm, from thorns to gold. Once there was a reader who, while working, sighed with frustration. "My boss is biased against me, always finding ways to criticize me. Sometimes he says my proposals are hard to look at. Other times he claims my drafts are unoriginal and lack creativity, and that my writing is all over the place. Basically, nothing seems to please him." "Do you think what your boss says is right?" I asked her. "He's unfair. I am confident I can do this job well." I then suggested to her, "First, don't rush to get angry or blame others. You're a recent graduate and still lack experience. Why not stay close to your boss and see it as a chance to improve yourself? Once you've developed and excelled in all aspects, then consider moving on." More than half a year later, the woman came back to talk to me. I assumed she had moved on to another company, but to my surprise, she not only stayed but had also received praise and recognition from her boss. She exclaimed that in the beginning, her anger led her to neglect her work and disturb others, but later that same anger made her decide to work hard day and night. She originally wanted to achieve some success before leaving, but unexpectedly, her continuous effort led to significant improvement and eventual commendation from her boss. Consequently, she was promoted and received salary increases. In the end, she decided to stay at the company and continue working. Opportunities come to those who are prepared, and the harder you work, the luckier you get. Those who spend their days in anger will ultimately achieve nothing. People who are quick to anger, blame, and hold grudges are cowards in life, unhappy with the present and too afraid to face it. Thus, they vent their frustrations through anger and blame. However, this only makes life more pessimistic and stuck, and certainly, success cannot be harvested this way. Avoidance is not the solution. The difficulties we face will not be resolved by running away. Only through change can we find new opportunities, see new solutions, and achieve success. 6. Being angry is not part of a smart person's vocabulary. There's a saying, "Still waters run deep," and slow speech is the mark of a wise person. A person who doesn't get angry isn't dull. They are actually very wise. Holding back anger isn't about being scared. It's about thinking before acting, being calm and considerate, always considering others' feelings. I have a friend who was once called into her boss's office during work and told she might not be suitable for the job. She went home and gave her husband the silent treatment for a few days before angrily resigning from her job. She said the more she thought about it, the more frustrated and sad she became, feeling misunderstood by everyone, including her family. I asked her, "When life doesn't go as planned, have you ever thought that maybe the problem could be with you?" She replied, "What's wrong with me? My short temper comes from being stressed. I have to do so much at home, plus my job. It's exhausting and nobody seems to understand." That's when I began to understand why her life felt so suffocating. People who are quick to anger often miss out on blessings. They tend to see only the faults in others and rarely recognize their own good qualities or admit their mistakes. Such people find it hard to be content or happy. It's natural to feel angry sometimes, but wise people know to look within themselves for the reason and calm themselves instead of blaming others. Only by doing this can one avoid the downward spiral of negativity. Ironically, people often treat strangers with kindness and reserve their worst behavior for family members. This is actually one of the most foolish and weak things to do. When you show anger, especially to those who care about you, it doesn't improve the situation. It only hurts the ones who love you. Anger drives away good fortune. This is an unchanging rule. Those who want to keep their good fortune must learn to control their anger. I remember in my neighborhood there were two elderly ladies over 70 with completely different temperaments. One had a kind and gentle face, always acted softly and gently. In my memory, I never saw her get angry or raise her voice in a dispute. Everyone in the neighborhood spoke highly of her educated, peaceful life. The other lady was the complete opposite, always complaining about how poorly others treated her. Her life was filled with days of sadness and discouragement, rarely experiencing joy. She found fault with everyone and seemed to think the whole world owed her an apology, which made people reluctant to be near her. Even her family rarely visited, and her life was quite lonely. Living a life on this earth, some people live meaningfully while others waste their efforts. When we can live with self-reflection and continually examine ourselves, we eventually learn that gentleness always overcomes harshness, and being angry is not in a smart person's vocabulary. 7. The wise do not argue. Miss Duong once shared a story like this. One day, while she was speaking in front of a large audience, a student loudly criticized her, claiming that Miss Duong was spreading dangerous ideas that negatively influenced the student's spirit. Miss Duong was taken aback and couldn't understand why the student was criticizing her speech. Faced with this baseless criticism, Miss Duong wanted to prove her innocence to everyone. However, standing at the podium in an auditorium with hundreds of eyes on her, she realized that arguing with the student over a temporary victory due to stubbornness would expose her to other extreme judgments. With this in mind, Miss Duong pretended she hadn't heard anything and continued with her presentation. After finishing, many teachers and students expressed their diverse opinions about Miss Duong's teaching methods. She nodded in thanks but didn't blame the student. If you've truly done nothing wrong, you don't need to explain yourself to everyone or argue with anyone. Life has a type of wisdom known as not disputing. No matter how many times you argue, it won't make the world treat you better. Some will agree, Others will not. As Lu Xun once said, everyone's joy and sorrow are different. Similarly, everyone's views and interpretations of the same event are different. Some people, out of pride, act irrationally. We should learn to keep a cool head to face challenging issues. Sometimes, choosing not to argue about right or wrong is not because you are cowardly, weak, or incompetent, but because you understand who is worth explaining to and who is not worth your emotional investment. Live your life without mocking others when you surpass them, without judging others when you don't understand them, without making up stories about those you dislike, and without stubbornly arguing with anyone when you know it's unnecessary. Try your best to live for what you love. Write your own story, where there is no place for those who negatively impact your quality of life. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 8. Wise people don't speak ill. On a train, a little boy excitedly looked out the window and shouted, "Dad, look! That tree is moving backwards!" His father smiled at him. A young couple sitting nearby felt sorry for the father, thinking the boy was intellectually delayed. Soon the boy exclaimed again, "Dad, look up! The clouds are chasing us!" Unable to hold back, the young couple suggested to the father, "Why don't you take your son to a good doctor to treat his developmental delays?" The father smiled and replied, "We just came from the hospital." The couple immediately assumed the doctors there were incompetent. At that point, the father clarified, "No, the doctor there is very skilled. My son has been blind from birth. Today, he can see the world for the first time." The couple felt deeply embarrassed. In this world, everyone has their own challenges. Before we fully understand a person or their circumstances, we should avoid judging someone just based on what we see. If you don't understand, stay quiet, because you never know what someone else has gone through. 9. A reasonable person does not exaggerate. Anne has been an executive assistant for 7 years. Over these years, some colleagues have liked her while others have not. Those who disliked her spread rumors, claiming she only got the job because of her connections. Anne knew all this but chose to remain silent. One day, some new design documents went missing from a department. Everyone pointed fingers at Vi, one of those who had previously spoken ill of Anne, labeling her a thief. The CEO assigned Anne the task of investigating the incident. After reviewing the security footage and interviewing the remaining team members present before the incident, Anne found the documents. Vi was not a thief. She had simply mixed the new documents with old ones and stored them away. After the investigation, Vi feared she might lose her job, expecting Anne to use this incident as a chance for revenge. However, Anne did not do so. She reported the truth to the CEO without exaggeration and even requested that Vi's past achievements be considered to allow her to keep her job. A reasonable person does not exaggerate even if there are past grievances. This is not only a sign of moral integrity but also shows a strong ability to control one's emotions. Even when you see the true nature of life, it's better to be kind and forgiving. This way, you won't let your original good nature change, nor will you allow external circumstances to change who you are. 10. Learning to let go and rise above. In life, we often face accusations, slander, troubles, and hurt from others. If we always retaliate, we'll pay a heavy price. 1. Don't engage with petty people. Author Rishiram Dodo said, "When someone mocks you and you instantly get angry and argue, when someone unjustly belittles you and you scorn them in return, when someone boasts in front of you and you immediately prove you're better, look, the people you dislike have easily turned you into what you dislike the most." If you pay too much attention to petty people, you'll get tainted by negativity and slowly become what you hate. Wise people aren't controlled by negative emotions. There's a saying, a wise man adapts to circumstances. They understand that living their life well is the most important thing. Getting caught up with petty people out of momentary anger is a waste of time and can even bring disaster upon oneself. It's better to argue with an educated person than to speak a word with a shrimp head. Avoid petty people. Patience is not cowardice, but a way to avoid trouble. A dragon does not fight with a snake, nor does a lion compete for food with a mad dog. 2. Don't get entangled in trivial matters. No life is perfect. Learning to let go and not get bogged down in trivial matters can free you from the mire and transform you into a pure lotus, enabling you to do more meaningful things and embrace a better version of your life. Life is short. Why worry about the small stuff? You may face criticism and schemes designed to drag you down, but if you don't give them your energy or attention, they can't affect you. 11. How to handle anger. Life's pressures can sometimes lead us to feel angry or irritated. During these moments, we often don't think clearly about our next decisions or actions, which can lead to mistakes that harm others and ourselves. It's clear that not knowing how to control our anger can cause stress and problems with colleagues, relatives, friends, and even ourselves. Ancient wisdom teaches us, anger kept inside is not out of fear, but from those who think before they act, remaining calm and composed. Only those who are wise and understanding handle their anger in this way. Focus on solving the issue rather than arguing. Nobody is perfect, and everyone makes mistakes. No matter how angry you are, blaming others heavily won't solve anything. It's better to sit down calmly together and discuss a solution to minimize the consequences of the problem. 1. Be responsible for every issue. As an adult, blame yourself before others. Live responsibly. Don't always shift the blame to others when something goes wrong. If you're understanding, think through your part in the problem. Focus on resolving the issue instead of getting upset and blaming others. This will earn you respect from those around you. 2. Let go of frustrations and embrace love from those around you. Instead of pushing people away when angry, relax a bit and accept a kiss from your loved one, or a cool drink from a colleague you've been arguing with. Simple gestures like a hug can effectively manage your anger, as they increase oxytocin levels, which reduce stress and discomfort. 3. Stay calm in all situations. Losing your cool can lead to arguments and even fights. When facing challenges, think about how to overcome them. Be clear-headed to view the situation from all angles. Don't just see others' mistakes without recognizing your own limitations. When you're upset, stand next to a tree, take deep breaths, and look up at the clear sky. If you have pen and paper, write down positive thoughts like funny stories your child tells you or loving words from your partner. 4. Learn to release your emotions. Over-controlling your feelings can impact your health. Smart, self-loving individuals release their anger before it escalates. Regularly talk about your feelings with a trusted friend or family member. Regular exercise can strengthen your body and help your brain focus, helping you control your anger. Meditation reduces stress and anxiety, which are common triggers for anger. Sometimes just pack a bag and go somewhere no one knows you. Enjoy the fresh air, the gentle breeze, and the warm sunlight. Enjoy the sense of nature and the people around you. If you don't trust anyone yet, start keeping a journal. It's a healthy way to express your emotions without hurting anyone. You can also write out your feelings in your mind and read them, which means following and understanding your emotions. In this complex life, If you can control your emotions and master yourself, you've already achieved 50% of future success. The key is to understand and control your emotions. 12. 3 things you should keep to yourself. 1. Social relationships. There's a saying in China, at home, rely on your parents. Outside, rely on your friends. Many people strive to build relationships with everyone, especially celebrities. However, boasting about having a celebrity's phone number or having a photo with them is common. CCTV editor Chung Ju was known for claiming friendships with famous politicians like U.S. President Bill Clinton and former Japanese Prime Minister Naoto Kan. This led to him being mocked online, and in 2015 Chung faced prison time. His so-called close friends did not support him, and his situation ended tragically. The essence of social relationships is an exchange of resources between equals. Dale Carnegie said, "One of life's most important lessons is to maximize your own advantages to earn respect from others. Don't think you can easily fool others. If you don't offer real value, people won't befriend you." 2. Your own intelligence. Uncle Hai was promoted but didn't receive congratulations from colleagues. He was very satisfied with his capabilities and opportunities, constantly praising himself in front of colleagues, which eventually led to their annoyance and alienation. One day, a seasoned manager advised him at a dinner party not to brag about his promotion to colleagues and friends. Since then, Uncle Hai has focused on listening and praising the good deeds of others, building better relationships at work. A sure way to make enemies is to always act superior. To make friends, let others shine. This allows them to feel important, while overshadowing them can foster insecurity and jealousy. 3. Your own capabilities. At a writer's meeting, a well-dressed male author wanted to be the center of attention, bragging about his numerous published novels. He approached a modestly dressed middle-aged woman, unaware that she was Margaret Mitchell, the author of the classic novel Gone with the Wind. His arrogance was met with a cold response, and he was embarrassed when he realized who she was. How do you recognize an intelligent person? It's someone who not only understands but also respects your views and beliefs. You feel comfortable around them, but they maintain a respectful distance, showing their wisdom. People say ignorance is not knowing modesty. Even the most talented individuals are just human, with strengths and weaknesses. Constantly seeking external validation and praise indicates inner insecurity. Reading thousands of books is like traveling thousands of miles. A well-read person has deep thoughts and a rich inner life. True strength is having talent without arrogance. Strength means having the capability but always respecting others. Let's cultivate good qualities, starting with humility. 13. 7 times when it's best to stay silent. 1. When you are unreasonably angry. Anger is a normal emotion, but acting or speaking out while irrationally angry is unhealthy. It can escalate conflicts unnecessarily. If you feel out of control or irritated, take some time to cool down. Tell the other person that you need a moment because you're not calm enough to talk. If they don't agree, it's better to step away and regain your composure. 2. When arguing with an angry person. Some people use anger to force others to listen, or they might be dealing with their own sadness and hurt. Arguing with them won't solve anything and can make things worse. Instead of engaging, choose to stay silent. Alternatively, responding kindly can diffuse the situation, surprising them and potentially calming the tension. 3. When tempted to overshare. Sometimes we share too much too soon in conversations. It's better to keep discussions light and positive, especially avoiding sensitive topics like religion, politics, and money. Let relationships develop before delving into more personal matters. Patience is often more beneficial than haste. 4. When someone else is gossiping, avoid participating in gossip. Gossip can be harmful and often distorts the truth. By not spreading it further, you show that you are trustworthy. If someone tries to draw you into gossip, leave the conversation. 5. When you feel like complaining. Complaining might feel good momentarily, but it's generally unproductive. If there's a real issue that needs addressing, that's an appropriate time to speak up. Otherwise, complaining just wastes time and energy that could be better spent on solutions. 6. When you don't know the answer. As Abraham Lincoln said, it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. If you're unsure about a topic, admitting you don't know can be valuable. It gives others a chance to share their knowledge, which is often more constructive. 7. When you're tempted to lie. Remember, once people catch you lying, they'll never fully trust you again. There are rare exceptions when lying might be necessary for your safety. However, in most cases, it's better to protect your integrity by staying silent or declining to answer.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
14. Tumbling along. When I was just learning to walk, falling down was inevitable. Every time I fell, I would usually lie on the floor, waiting for my mom to come and soothe me or give me a treat before I would agree to get up. Once I fell pretty hard and couldn't stop crying despite my mom's efforts to comfort me. This time it wasn't that I was being fussy, I was genuinely in pain. Suddenly, my mom stood up, opened a small cupboard where she kept various little things, and brought out a tumbler toy. She placed the tumbler on the ground, pushed it so it wobbled and fell, then said to me, "Look, even though it's smaller than you, every time it's pushed down, it gets right back up. See, my darling daughter." I watched the tumbler toy. Indeed, whenever it was pushed, it sprang right back up. I was captivated by this new toy and forgot about the pain. My mom watched me with a gentle smile and said, "Do you see? No matter what, the tumbler always stands back up. It's very brave, and I believe you are just as brave." I stopped crying and watched the tumbler toy wobble but never fall down. From that day on, I tried to be like the tumbler. Every time I stumbled, I made an effort to stand up immediately. My mom often called me her adorable little tumbler. Now I don't have my mom by my side. I've grown up and must take care of everything myself. Life isn't always as I wish. Sometimes, when I'm tired or disheartened, I want to give up. But the image of the tumbler and my mom's encouraging words always come back to me, and I continue to get back up. Nothing can keep me down because I am determined to be a tumbler. 15. The Golden Window. Charles lived with his parents on a small farm. Every day he would wake up before sunrise, and he particularly enjoyed watching the early morning, especially a golden window at a nearby farm. He thought this window was the most beautiful in the world. From a distance, it looked magnificent, almost as if it were made of gold. The house's paint also seemed glamorous, suggesting a wealthy family lived there. Perhaps, behind that golden window, there would be a brand new, fragrant curtain, not old like the ones at his house. And what else? A fireplace. Right. Next to the fireplace there might be a soft, cushioned chair, the perfect spot Charles had longed for. He let his imagination soar. Then, one day, Charles decided to see this dream house up close. The closer he got, the more excited he became, but everything turned out to be completely opposite to what he had imagined. The house was just an ordinary one. Even the gold paint around the window was scratched and worn out. Filled with disappointment, Charles hardly noticed a boy playing in the yard until he called out, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Oh, I'm just walking around," Charles answered awkwardly. "Where are you from?" "Over there." Charles vaguely pointed. Then the boy pulled Charles aside and asked, "Hey, do you know the house over there?" Following the boy's pointing finger, Charles was shocked to see it wasn't a strange house at all. It was his own home. Surprisingly, from a distance under the sunlight, it looked beautiful. The boy excitedly said, "See, that house with the golden window, it must be beautiful inside, right? They probably have a big fireplace and a cozy armchair by it too." 16. The Tale of Two Boxes. Once upon a time, a grandfather and his grandson lived in a tiny hut in poverty, barely managing to get by. The grandson often felt sad because he didn't have nice clothes like the other kids in the neighborhood, who would sometimes make fun of him. Especially during Christmas, they never had a Christmas tree or any gifts in their hut. On the Christmas when the boy turned 10, it seemed like it would be just another year without hope for anything good. But that year, his kind grandfather gave him two boxes, one black and one wrapped in shiny gold paper. The boxes were placed side by side on top of a cupboard. The grandfather told him that they had to be kept there to be special and continued, "When you feel sad, sit by the black box, and when you're happy, sit next to the gold box." Although the boxes were empty, they became a source of comfort for the boy during Christmas. He followed his grandfather's instructions, pouring all his sorrows and joys into the two boxes. Sitting next to the gold box made his happiness seem to multiply and linger. When he was sad and talked to the black box, his sorrows seemed to lessen. The two boxes eventually helped ease the boy's frustrations and loneliness. Out of curiosity, one day the boy opened both boxes to look inside. In the bottom of the black box, he saw a hole. "Grandpa, where did all my sorrows go?" the boy asked. "They've fallen out and flown away," his grandfather replied. Then he added, "The gold box isn't broken, so it keeps all your happiness and good luck with you forever. Have you found your own special boxes yet?" 17. Freckles. An old lady was holding hands with a little boy as they stood in line at the park. The boy's face was dotted with many small freckles, but his eyes sparkled with excitement. Many other children were also in line, waiting to get their faces painted to look like Native Americans or aliens. "You have so many freckles. There's hardly any space left on your face to paint," the girl standing behind the boy exclaimed loudly. Embarrassed, the boy looked down. Seeing this, his grandmother sat down beside him. "Why are you sad? I love your freckles. When I was little, I always wished I had freckles," the old lady said as she gently stroked the boy's cheek with her wrinkled fingers. "Freckles are beautiful, and I'm sure the artist will love them too." The boy smiled. "Really, Grandma?" "Absolutely," his grandmother replied. "Now, try to find something prettier than your freckles." The boy looked at his grandmother, thought for a moment, and then whispered, "The wrinkles, Grandma." 18. The 80th Floor. Two brothers lived on the 80th floor of a skyscraper. One day after work, they found the elevator broken, so they had to climb the stairs to their apartment. They managed to get to the 20th floor, slightly tired. But what really bothered them was carrying their heavy bags. They decided to leave the bags behind and retrieve them the next day. Feeling lighter and more cheerful, they eagerly continued to the 40th floor. But from there, the younger brother started feeling very tired, and the siblings began to argue over a minor issue. Nevertheless, they pushed on for another 20 floors. Upon seeing the sign for the 60th floor, they were both relieved, knowing they had only a quarter of the journey left. They cooled down and stopped arguing to finish the climb. Step by step, they finally made it. Standing in front of their apartment, they were overjoyed, but then realized they had left their keys in the bags back on the 20th floor. Life seems to be similar. Everyone has to climb their own stairs in life. Some reach the 80th floor, others less. In our early years, we study and live under the expectations of parents, teachers, and friends. We rarely do what we truly like. During that time, many dreams are formed, but to achieve them, we need to work hard, gain knowledge and experience, and sometimes even make sacrifices. At age 20, thrilled with newfound freedom, we feel burdened by past dreams and just want to shed them to pursue fleeting desires and enjoy temporary joys that life offers. By age 40, we often feel unsatisfied, prone to complain and criticize others. By age 60, realizing time is limited, we become calmer and quietly live out our remaining years. Then, when we think nothing can trouble us anymore, each of us may feel regret for dreams not realized or abandoned 60 years ago. Hold on to your dreams and the valuable experiences you have at age 20. Carry them with you throughout life, so you never have to regret anything you've done. Learn to forgive instead of always criticizing and complaining about others. Help people, and be thankful for the chance to live this life. 19. Actions and intentions. In the winter of 1990, I was invited to the Capitol to appear on a TV talk show. The day before the filming, as I was driving back to my hotel, I saw something. Right there on the snowy, icy sidewalk lay a man sleeping, covered only with a cardboard sheet. I was deeply moved, seeing his bare feet without any shoes or socks. At that moment, I thought I should stop the car and help him, but I was unsure about what I was about to do. Then the traffic light turned green. Life seemed to demand that I keep moving. So, I pressed the gas pedal and drove off. Back at the hotel, I quickly forgot about the man on the street. The next day, as I was having coffee waiting for my turn in the grand lobby, all the important people had left, leaving just me and the janitor. I had seen him quietly going about his daily work during my stay. He never said much besides, "Good morning," or "Can I help you, sir?" He always smiled at everyone. Chatting with him, I asked how he was feeling today. He told me he had just biked around in the snow and felt sorry for himself, until he saw a man sleeping on a street corner with just a cardboard sheet for a blanket and no shoes. I choked up when he recounted how he circled back several times to buy the poor man a pair of shoes and socks. While listening to the janitor's story, I suddenly remembered a familiar poster. The poster depicted a child holding a flower, stretching up to give it to an adult with the caption, "A small act means more than grand intentions." I stood there, wishing I had been the one to buy the shoes and socks for the man on the street as I was called into the studio. After the recording ended, I went back to that road to look for the poor man, but he was gone. 20. Facing criticism. First story. Once, during a relaxed moment, Emperor Tong Taizong asked his trusted official, Hua Jingtong, "Why do I hear so much criticism about you, even though you don't seem like a bad person?" Hua Jingtong replied, "Your Majesty, consider this. Spring rains are like oil, nourishing the fields which pleases the farmers, but frustrates travelers because it makes the road slippery. The autumn moon shines bright like a mirror in the night sky, delighting poets who revel in its beauty. Yet thieves despise it for making the night too clear. Nature does not favor anyone, yet it is often blamed or hated in this world. As for me, I'm not perfect, so criticism is inevitable. I believe we should calmly consider any gossip we hear. If a king listens to rumors, his officials suffer. If parents believe them, their children are abandoned. If spouses listen, their families break apart. Rumors can be more poisonous than snakes, sharper than swords, killing without leaving a trace. Second story. Once, Buddha was teaching in an area where many followed the Brahmin religion. The Brahmin priests, noticing that many of their followers were converting to Buddhism, confronted Buddha with insults. Buddha continued walking calmly, ignoring them. Frustrated, they blocked his path and asked, Are you deaf? I am not deaf, Buddha replied. If you're not deaf, why don't you respond to my insults? Buddha explained, imagine you're hosting a party and when your guests leave, they refuse the gifts you offer them. Who ends up keeping the gifts? They would stay with me, the priest replied. Similarly, if you insult me and I don't accept it, the insults remain with you. Buddha's teachings say that when a wicked person insults a good person and the good person does not accept it, it's like someone spitting upwards. The spit doesn't reach the sky, but falls back on their own face. Only by accepting do we suffer. By not accepting, we find peace and happiness. So from now on, if someone speaks ill of you, do not accept it, and you will remain at peace. In Buddhism, verbal actions are among the most harmful one can commit. Words can wound deeper and heal slower than any physical injury. Therefore, be careful with your words and avoid creating conflicts unconsciously. And do not blame others just because of their mistakes, for every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. 21. Rules to make you happier. Optimistic people don't have magical powers. They're just different because they focus on the positive even in tough situations. Instead of letting worries control them, positive thinkers manage their lives by controlling stress and improving themselves every day. Don't assume the worst. Many problems wouldn't exist if we didn't think about them. Instead of obsessing over pointless questions like, what if they don't like me? Optimists think more practically like, today is going to be a busy day. While ordinary people may suffer from their imagined scenarios, optimists enjoy the present and face reality. Don't compare yourself to others. Positive people understand that everyone is unique with their own path. They believe in what they are doing and what they have. Instead of focusing on others' stories, they focus on their own growth. Don't overemphasize small mistakes. Positive individuals don't see failure as a disaster to avoid at all costs. In reality, failure is a normal part of life that challenges us and provides valuable lessons. Viewing failure this way helps optimists rarely feel hopeless. Don't expect life to be perfect. Optimists never fool themselves into thinking life is perfect because it's not. Rather than waiting for a perfect day to do something, positive people take action today and in the moment. Waiting for something perfect is a hopeless wait. Don't let others' moods control you. Positive people don't let negative thoughts drag them down. In tough times, they surround themselves with positive, cheerful, and optimistic people. When negative thoughts creep in, they remind themselves, being happy or sad is my own choice. Don't get bored. Boredom is the enemy of creativity, passion, and enthusiasm. Therefore, positive people are always excited about everything around them. They explore the world with curious and youthful enthusiasm. Don't see problems as problems. The word problem is practically taboo for positive people. They believe every obstacle also brings an undiscovered opportunity. Optimists embrace difficulties as a chance to challenge themselves and grow. Don't blame others. If you cling to something your whole life, you'll never be able to walk alone. Just like a child who falls many times before learning to walk, positive people don't make excuses for failures or mistakes. They recognize their errors but are ready to face them without blaming circumstances. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 22. Which bread tastes best? A homeless man had been wandering for days without food. As he reached a corner street, he smelled the delicious aroma of bread wafting from a nearby house. Luckily for him, it was a bakery. Please, could you spare a piece of bread for a hungry soul? The beggar pleaded with the bakery owner. Ah, you are wise to come here, the owner began proudly. How did you know about my bakery? Who told you? Surely, it's because my bread is so well known. Let me share a secret with you. My bread is made from a family recipe passed down through 7 generations. It's written in that red leather book on the shelf over there. Do you see it? The beggar tried to smile. Yes, sir, but I am really hungry. I haven't eaten anything for days. I only ask for a piece of bread. Ignoring the beggar's desperate look, the owner continued to preach about his dough-kneading secrets. He pulled the beggar closer to the oven, where fresh, crispy loaves exuded a tantalizing scent. See how beautiful and fragrant these breads are? Baking is an art. To make good, beautiful bread, one must have a passion for baking. But sir, I'm really hungry. I beg you, the beggar stuttered. You must understand. People need many things, but bread is fundamental. No one can live without bread. That's exactly why I came knocking on your door, the beggar timidly interjected. Wait, let me finish. But not everyone has ethics like me. Come here. The bakery owner led the beggar to the door and continued. See, every house on this street has a bread oven, but don't trust them. Some add poor quality flour, others too much salt, and some overbake their bread. And yet they dare to call what they make bread. Sir, I just need a piece of bread to eat, the beggar repeated wearily. But what I'm about to tell you is most important, the owner continued, gesturing broadly. Suddenly, the beggar turned and slowly walked away. Hey, don't you want to try my bread? It's the best in the region, made from a centuries-old family recipe, the owner called after him. No, sir. Bread from elsewhere might be saltier, made with worse flour, even burnt, but at least it fills my stomach. Here, it's only my ears that get fed. 23. The roots of growth. The strength of a person is shaped in their own weaknesses. When I was young, we had a neighbor everyone called Dr. Gibbs. He wasn't like any doctor I had ever known. He was very simple and kind, especially to us mischievous kids. Beyond his life-saving job, Dr. Gibbs loved to garden. He wanted to turn his 10-acre plot into a forest. This gentle doctor had some interesting theories about planting trees, quite different from what most people thought was obvious. He never watered the new trees. He explained to me that watering them would spoil them, and the next generation of trees would grow weaker. Therefore, it was essential to let them face hardships. Any tree that couldn't withstand this would be removed early on. He then taught me how to water trees with shallow roots, so they would have to deepen their roots to find water. No wonder I never saw him water the plants. He had an oak tree that, instead of watering, he would beat with a rolled-up newspaper every morning. Thump, thump, thump. I asked why he did this, and he said it was to make it pay attention. Dr. Gibbs passed away 2 years after I moved away from my family. Now, looking at the rows of trees at his place, I can imagine him planting them 25 years ago. The trees from back then have now grown strong and vibrant. Like robust young men, they wake up each morning, puff out their chests, and are ready to face any hardships and challenges. Years later, I also planted 2 trees. In the hot summers, I watered them, and in the cold winters, I applied pesticides and prayed for them. They grew to nearly 30 feet in 2 years, but they always relied on my care. Just a chill wind was enough to make them shiver and lose branches, just like weaklings. This was in stark contrast to Dr. Gibbs's forest. It seems that adversity and deprivation were more beneficial to them than abundance. Every night before sleep, I would stop by my 2 sons' room and watch them sleep peacefully. Looking at their tiny bodies breathing the rhythm of life, I always prayed for their comfortable life. But recently, I've thought it's time to change that prayer. I pray now for them to be stronger, to withstand the inevitable storms of life. Naivety might spare them some hardships, because adversity and challenges are an inherent part of life. And whether we like it or not, life is never smooth. I hope that the roots of my children will grow deep so that they can draw strength from the hidden springs of eternal life. Looking back, I realize I've prayed too much for peace, but rarely have those wishes been fulfilled. What we need is to pray to develop robust bodies and resilient, enduring spirits, so when faced with scorching sun or storms, we will never be defeated. 24. Buddha's teachings on loyalty and love. Late at night in a temple, a man kneels before the Buddha seeking advice on love. Man: "O enlightened Buddha, I am married, but I am deeply in love with another woman. I really don't know what to do." Buddha: "Can you say for sure that this woman you love now is the only and last one for you in your life?"
Man: "Yes, I can."
Buddha: "Then divorce and marry her?" Man: "But my current wife is gentle, good, and kind. Wouldn't leaving her be cruel and immoral?" Buddha: "Being in a marriage without love is what's truly cruel and immoral. You no longer love your wife because you love someone else. You are doing the right thing." Man: "But my wife still loves me deeply." Buddha: "Then she is happy." Man: "After I leave her for another? She will be devastated. How can she be happy then?" Buddha: "In the marriage, your wife still loves you, but you've lost your love for her. Since you love someone else, the pain of losing happiness is yours to bear." Man: "But if I leave my wife and then marry another, she'll be the one in pain because she lost me." Buddha: "You are mistaken. You are just a person she truly loved. When someone like you is gone, her true love will continue with someone else, because her true love in the marriage never vanished. Thus, she will ultimately be the happy one, not you." Man: "My wife once said she would only love me in this life. She won't love anyone else." Buddha: "Haven't you said the same once?" Man: I... Buddha: "Now, look at the 3 candles in front of you. Which one is the brightest?" Man: "I really can't tell. They all seem equally bright." Buddha: "Those candles are like the 3 women. One of them is the woman you now love. With so many beings and not even knowing which candle shines the brightest, how can you be sure this woman is the only one for you?" Man: I... Buddha: "Now, hold a candle close and see which one appears brightest." Man: "Obviously, the one in front of me." Buddha: "Put it back and look again." Man: "Honestly, I still can't tell which one is the brightest." Buddha: "The candle you just held is like the woman you love now. Love emerges from the heart. When you focus on it, it seems the brightest. Once you let go, you can't find that feeling again. The so-called last and only love is just an illusion, like flowers in a mirror or the moon reflected on the water, ultimately empty." Man: "I understand now, Buddha. You aren't rushing me to divorce. You're guiding me to realize the truth myself." Buddha: "True insight doesn't need to be spelled out. Go now." Man: "I now know who I truly love. It's my current wife." Buddha: Amitabha Buddha. Conclusion: the truth of happiness does not wait for another life, nor needs to be sought elsewhere. It exists here and now. Everyone has a source of genuine happiness, but often people do not recognize it and seek fleeting pleasures instead. 25. The Old Fisherman. Our house is located directly across from the entrance to Johns Hopkins Hospital. My family lives on the ground floor and we rent out the upstairs rooms to patients who need a place to stay. One evening, while I was cooking soup for dinner, I heard a knock on the door. I opened it to find a very unattractive man standing there. He was hunched over and wrinkled, barely taller than my 8-year-old son. But it was his face that was truly frightful, swollen red and lopsided. Yet, his voice was surprisingly gentle. "Hello, I was wondering if you might have a room available just for tonight. I came from the East Coast for treatment and won't have a ride back until tomorrow morning." He explained how he had been searching for a room all afternoon but was repeatedly told there were none available. "I think it's because of my face. I know it looks scary, but the doctor said I just need a few more treatments." I hesitated, but his next words convinced me. "I can sleep in a chair in the lobby if necessary, as my bus leaves very early." I insisted that I would find him a proper bed. I couldn't let him sleep on a chair. I returned to the kitchen to finish dinner and later invited him to join us. "Oh, no need. I have plenty of food," he said, holding up a brown paper bag. After dinner, I spoke with him in the hallway and soon discovered that within his frail body was a vast heart. He worked as a fisherman to support his daughter, 5 grandchildren, and a son-in-law who was completely disabled after an accident. There was no trace of bitterness in his voice, only gratitude. He was thankful that his illness wasn't painful and grateful for the faith that kept him going. At bedtime, I set up a folding bed in the kids' room for him. The next morning, we found the bed neatly made, and the old man was already in the lobby. He declined breakfast and hesitated before saying, "Can I come back here for my next treatment? I won't be any trouble. I can sleep on the chair." He paused, then added, "Your children make me feel at home. Adults might find my face disturbing, but the kids don't seem to mind." I told him he was always welcome back at our house. The second time he came back, he brought gifts, a huge fish and a jar full of the largest oysters I'd ever seen, freshly shucked that morning. He must have woken up at an unearthly hour to prepare them before his 4 a.m. bus ride. Throughout the years he stayed with us, he never arrived without bringing something. Sometimes I'd even receive gifts through the mail. From his house to the post office was a long trip, and it cost him quite a bit to send fresh items, so his gifts were doubly precious. Once a neighbor said, "You let that creepy old man stay over." I turned him away. "You might lose customers if you let people like that stay at your place." Maybe we did lose a customer or two, but once they understood about him, those thoughts vanished. My family is forever grateful for having known him. We learned that life doesn't always bring good fortune. What's important is to live optimistically and be ready to accept all risks, not just to complain about our lot.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
26. The lesson a cow taught a man. Sometimes what you believe to be true isn't correct at all. It's just something you've concluded from incomplete experiences without realizing it. Long ago, there was a wise and experienced teacher who wanted to teach one of his students the secrets to a happy and prosperous life. Knowing the hardships many face in their quest for happiness, he believed the first lesson should be understanding why many people lead average and mundane lives. The teacher thought that too many people, both men and women, seem unable to overcome the obstacles that prevent them from succeeding, settling for a life of scarcity and hardship instead. He knew that for a young person to truly grasp this important lesson, they should see firsthand what happens when we let mediocrity control our lives. To teach these crucial lessons, the teacher decided to take his student to a poor village nearby. The scene was one of misery and desolation, and the villagers seemed resigned to their fate. Upon arriving, the teacher asked his student to help find the poorest family in the area where they could stay overnight. After walking to the edge of town, they stopped before the most dilapidated shack they had ever seen. The shack, barely standing at the far edge of a few rural homes, clearly belonged to the poorest family in the village. The walls stood as if by a miracle, threatening to collapse at any moment. The makeshift roof barely held back the rain, and piles of rubbish leaned against the walls, adding to the shabbiness. The homeowner, alerted by a child about the presence of the guests, came out and welcomed them warmly. "Hello, dear friend," the teacher greeted. "Would you mind if 2 weary travelers stayed here for the night?" he asked. "It's cramped, but you're welcome to stay," the homeowner replied. As the teacher and his student entered, they were shocked by the tiny space, barely bigger than a small room that housed 8 people. The parents, their 4 children, and 2 elderly grandparents all tried to make room for each other in the cramped conditions. The emaciated bodies and tattered clothes were clear evidence of their daily struggles. Their sad faces and stooped posture showed how poverty had not just claimed their bodies but had seeped into their souls. The visitors couldn't help but look around and wonder if there was anything of value in this miserable place. There was nothing. However, upon stepping outside, they realized they were wrong. Surprisingly, this family owned something quite extraordinary in these circumstances: a cow. The cow wasn't remarkable, but the family's daily life seemed to revolve around this animal. Feed the cow. Don't let it go thirsty. Tie it up securely. Don't forget to take it to graze. Milk the cow. Indeed, the cow played a significant role in the family's life, even though the little milk it provided was barely enough for them to survive day by day. Yet, the cow served a greater purpose. It was the only thing keeping them from total despair. In a place where everything was scarce, owning such a valuable asset brought them admiration, if not envy, from their neighbors. And there, amidst the filth and chaos, the teacher and student lay down to sleep for the night. The next morning, before dawn could break, the teacher and student quietly left to avoid waking the others. The student looked back, wanting to etch the wretched scene into his memory. Deep down, he couldn't understand why his teacher had brought him here. However, just before they reached the main road, the old teacher whispered, "It's time for you to know what brought us to this wretched place." During their brief visit, they had witnessed a life almost completely abandoned, but the student still didn't understand why the family was so impoverished. What had forced them to stay here? The teacher slowly walked towards the cow, which was tied to a shaky fence post not far from the shack. When he was about a step away from the cow, the old teacher pulled out a knife he carried with him. The student was confused. As the teacher raised his hand, the student was in disbelief when he saw what his teacher was about to do. He couldn't believe his eyes as the teacher cleanly slit the cow's throat. The fatal cut brought the animal down. "Look at what you've done," the student asked in a whisper, pained and fearful of waking the others. "How could you kill that poor animal? What kind of lesson could possibly justify plunging that family into complete ruin? That was all they had. What will they do now?" Unmoved by the student's distress and ignoring his questions, the teacher walked away, leaving behind a horrifying scene, not caring about the disaster the family would face now that they had lost their cow. The student followed, still filled with doubts, and they continued on their way. The family was forced to confront an unstable situation filled with difficulties and even greater poverty. In the days that followed, the student was haunted by the terrible thought that the family would starve to death without their cow. Could he draw any other conclusion from the loss of their only source of livelihood? For many months, he was tormented by these thoughts and the memory of that sad morning. A year went by, and one afternoon, the old teacher suggested they return to the village to see what had happened to that family. Just the hint of revisiting an event that seemed to have been forgotten was enough to awaken in the student vivid memories of the lesson he still couldn't fully comprehend. Once again, the student's mind was filled with thoughts of the destitute family and the role he had played in their fate. What had happened to them? Had they survived the severe blow? Had they started a new life? Could he face them after what his teacher had done? Despite the turmoil in his thoughts, the student reluctantly agreed and hesitantly joined the trip that might clarify the events that had tormented him all year. After several days, they reached the old village. They searched in vain for the shack they had stayed in the previous year. The surrounding scenery looked the same, But the dilapidated place they had spent the night was nowhere to be seen, replaced instead by a neatly built house on the old site. They stopped and looked around to be sure they were in the right place. The student feared that the death of the cow was a blow too severe for such a bare family to overcome. Perhaps they had been forced to leave and a more fortunate family had taken over the land and built the new house. What other possibility could there be? Surely shame had driven them away. While these thoughts swirled in his head, the student hesitated between wanting to know what had happened to the family and the unappealing task of confirming his worst suspicions. But ultimately, he decided he needed to know, so he knocked on the door of the house and waited. Soon, a cheerful man stepped out of the house. At first, the student didn't recognize him, but then he couldn't hide his astonishment when he realized it was the same man who had hosted them the previous year. Clearly the same person, but something was very different about him. He wore clean, neatly groomed clothes. He had a smile on his lips and a sparkle in his eyes. Clearly, something significant had happened in his life. The young man could hardly believe his eyes. How could this be? What could have happened in just 1 year? He rushed to greet the man and immediately interrogated him about the stroke of luck that had come his way. "Just last year when we stopped by here," he began, "you seemed to be living in misery and hopelessness. Tell me what happened to change your circumstances so drastically. What good fortune did you encounter?" Ignoring the fact that it was these very guests who had killed the cow, the man invited them inside and began to tell the remarkable story of his family. The story would forever change the life of our young friend. The homeowner explained that it was a strange coincidence that, on the very day the teacher and student had left, some heartless person, envious of his family's rare asset, had brutally cut the cow's throat. "I must admit," the man said, "our first reaction was utter despair and grief. For a long time, the milk from that cow was our only means of survival. Moreover, it was the only asset we had. Our lives depended on it. That cow was the center of our daily existence, honestly. Having that animal gave us a sense of security and brought us admiration from our neighbors. Not long after that tragic day, we realized that if we didn't do something, we could only fall into a worse situation. We had hit rock bottom when we lost that animal. We also needed to eat and raise our children. So we cleared a plot of land behind the house and planted a few vegetable seeds. That's how we survived the first few months. After a while, we noticed that the garden provided more food than we needed. If we could sell to people around us, we could buy more seeds. Before long, we were not only well-fed, but also able to sell at the market. And then it happened," the man eagerly continued. "For the first time in our lives, we had money to buy food and clothes, and we saw hope for a new life, a life we had never even dreamed could become reality. We built this small house last month. It seems that losing the cow opened our eyes to a different, more promising life." The young man was amazed to hear the story. At last, he realized the lesson his venerable teacher had wanted to teach him. Suddenly, everything became clear. The death of the cow wasn't the end for them as he had feared, but had opened up a new life with better opportunities. The homeowner invited the teacher and student to stay overnight, and they gladly accepted. The next morning, they bid farewell to the homeowner and his family and continued their journey. The teacher, who had been silent until now, asked the student, who was still amazed by what he had heard and witnessed, "Do you think that family could have achieved what they did in the past year if they still had that cow?" "Probably not," the student replied without hesitation. "Do you understand now? The cow they cherished like a treasure was actually the chain that tied their lives to extreme poverty. They were convinced that the cow kept them from collapsing, but it took losing that false security for them to look in a new direction. In other words," the student continued, "the cow, the animal their neighbors considered a blessing, gave them the feeling they weren't living in abject poverty, but in reality, their lives were quite miserable. "That's right," the old teacher spoke up. "That's what happens when you believe that the little you have is enough. Just that thought alone is a heavy chain that prevents you from seeking better things. Satisfaction begins to destroy your life. You accept your circumstances even though you're not happy with them. You know you're not joyful with your position in life, but you also don't feel miserable. You're disappointed with the life you lead, but your dissatisfaction isn't strong enough to make you do something about it. Do you see how tragic that is? When you have a job you don't like, a job that doesn't even meet your basic needs and doesn't bring you any personal satisfaction or the life you want, then deciding to leave and find another job is easy. But when the job you dislike helps you pay your debts, survive, and even enjoy a few small comforts, you easily fall into the trap of being content with the thought that at least you have something. Ultimately, you justify that many people would want that job if they could have it. Just like the cow, that attitude always holds you back. If you don't cast it aside, you'll never see anything beyond what you've long known. You become a lifelong victim of the limits you set for yourself in your life. It's like you're blindfolded at the starting line and praying to win the race. The student listened more and more in awe. He was fascinated by his teacher's insights and began to fully understand the issues. We all have cows in our lives. We carry the burden of mistaken beliefs, excuses, fears, and prejudices. Tragically, all these self-imposed limitations tie us to a mediocre life. Not only that, the old teacher continued, many people stubbornly keep the reasons they can't live the life they've always dreamed of. They come up with almost credible excuses to justify themselves to others and continue to live with inner turmoil when they realize that these reasons might fool others but not themselves. What a great lesson! The student reflected, turning his thoughts towards his own cows. On the way back, he carefully considered all the limitations he had imposed on himself in life, and he decided to remove all the beliefs that had tied him to a bland and mediocre existence, as well as those that had prevented him from realizing his true potential. Without a doubt, he told himself, that day marked the beginning of a new life, a life without cows. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.